We can. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our fourth edition of Oracle ACE Live. I'm happy to have with me today two of our amazing Oracle ACE directors, Jim and Karen, who will have a really interesting session for you, including slides and demos, some cool things that they want to show you. But before we get into that, let me mention that this event is being hosted by the Oracle ACE program. My name is Juana Bono. I'm the community manager of the Oracle ACE program. And before we get into today's session, I want to briefly tell you for a couple of minutes who we are, what our members do, where we are worldwide, and why you should become part of the Oracle ACE program if you are eligible, right? If you're not an Oracle employee or a public sector employee, then we would be happy to welcome you to the program. The Oracle ACEs are our tech superstars. The program has been around for over 20 years, and it brings together all these amazing experts on Oracle technologies from all over the world. And it also offers them a series of benefits that you can see more in the following slides. But as a community, we have over 600 people in almost 60 countries of the world. As you can see here, most of the AIDS population is actually based in Europe and Middle East, followed by Japan and Asia Pacific and North America. And we also have a representation in South America. But what I want to focus on today is actually something new. The Oracle ACE Apprentice level that we recently launched at AI World. We actually pre-launched it there, but we are very, very close on launching it live to everyone in the next days. So this is actually an entry level, fresh new path into the program. It's actually a roadmap designed to help you gain advocacy knowledge and become proficient and graduate as an Oracle ACE associate and enjoy even more benefits in the program. Our ideal candidate is, as you can see here, anyone who uses Oracle technology either in their free time to test things, to play around, to learn new things, or as part of the roles, or fresh graduate students who are just starting their career. So if you want to learn more about it, I do encourage you to go to ace.oracle.com/apprentice and you will find more details there. But as a structure for the program, in case you're not really familiar, we used to have three levels, associate, pro, and directors as you grow into the program and as you have more expertise. And now we're also bringing this extra pre-level, let's say the level before, where, as I mentioned, you have the opportunity to become proficient in sharing advocacy, in sharing what you know, in helping the community. If for the other levels you need to submit a nomination that is reviewed and passes a compliance and a content review, this one is a registration type of entry where you only submit your name and your email, and that's the first step. And then you start receiving more information from us as you go through that path. In terms of benefits, we do have a lot of benefits for each level. For the apprentice, most of the benefits are in terms of visibility, trainings, access to our community of ACEs through mentoring, and then, of course, some cool digital assets that they can show around in social media, on their blogs or LinkedIn profiles to show that they are part of the community and that they are dedicated to learn and become ACEs. And after that, the other levels have the benefits that we have listed here. I'm not going to spend too much time because you can find all this information on our website, and I do encourage you to go there and read and learn more about it. But I would say it's very important that as you grow into the program and reach new milestones, you have the opportunity to gain more benefits and ultimately, as my two guests here today, as an ACE director, you have the opportunity to benefit from travel support on behalf of Oracle if you would love to go and attend conferences and present at conferences all over the world. So Yes, my call to action for you today is to go here at our website and pre-register so you are the first to know once we fully go live. And you can either join us or encourage someone else to join. And these are all the channels where you can find us and connect with us if you have questions, if you have anything you want to share with us, either through social media or email, or even in the ACE directory, you can find our pool of ACEs and connect with them. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to, of course, say thank you again for joining us. And I'm going to pass it over to Jim.
Everyone can see my slides, I hope. Here we go. Good morning. Jim Czuprynski here, Chief Storyteller, Zero Defect Computing, and with my colleague, Karen Cannell.
Hi, I'm Karen Cannell, TH
Yep,
Technology.
sorry.
Nice to see
So we're here
you.
today to talk to you about RAS before RAG and why you should know a lot more about real application security, especially for generative AI. I'm going to let Karen talk about the majority of what we're going to cover here, and then I'm going to chime in with some code and make your eyes bleed. But Karen, just tell me when you
Jim's
want
good
me
at
to go to
that.
the next slide. I'm good at
Yeah,
that. Yes.
we all love this slide. Data security is not grant select on employees to Bob or Jane or Mary or all of the above. It's a lot more complicated now. We've got different roles in the database, different technical users in the database, and then developers get a whole different slice. Your DBAs get a different slice. It's a lot more than just creating a view for this user and that's their slice of the data. We're more complicated now. Next slide. And the problem is we've got data not just in our database, it's going, I won't say all over the place, but as we do more online and IT is more central to all our organizations, we have various levels of privileged users in our applications. A lot of us have analytics and BI platforms, and we have data going from the database to these analytics BI platforms. We've got batch jobs running. We've got some people, perhaps grandfathered, that are directly connecting to our database through SQL CL or some other IDE. And now with the advent of AI, and this is a scary part, we have data going into AI agents with MCP. Those things happen really fast. And anything going to a general generative AI service, that's data from your database going to an AI service in the sky. Is the right data going? Is it going public? We need to be more careful than ever. There's many data security patterns. And this slide just encompasses some of them. Row level security, restricting now at the column level, restricting by time. You can only access this data certain times of the day or update it at certain times of the day. Um, we have domains, we have delegations, certain sensitive data may be visible to three different tiers of users depending on their clearance or their label or their role. It's no longer just role-based access or strictly by the organization of the company. There's also, we need to consider, we're all in an Oracle database, that we will have constraints in that database and master detail relations. Does your security follow every level of your constraints and your master detail relations? If it doesn't, it should, it needs to. Everything is dynamic and changing, and this is just a subset of the security patterns that are out there. So how did Jim and I get to be experts? Are we experts, Jim, on real
No,
application security?
no,
Um,
and this is a has been and a spurt's a drip under pressure, so I'll take that label. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. So
yeah, reluctant
as many of you
experts.
know, yeah, as many of you know, we work with, I work with fisheries data, and that Jim can fish speak now too, because and this is 3 years ago, my fisheries organization, my organization, um, it finally said, okay, we can finally do VPD now, virtual private database. And I said, I'm busy getting this out. Let me pull something in. So that was our task, Jim and I, to implement VPD. And Jim looked at it and said, no, 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 no. VPD was 8I. We need to look at real application security because we have 33 different state, federal, and local government partners. Each of them has different confidentiality rules and different administrators and different end users. And an end user may have access to one or more partners at any given time. Some of the state and federal access overlaps. We have PII in there. Not everyone gets access to that. And all of that was very strictly controlled by part of our database and constrained, and we had sign-offs, and that was working great. But implementing it in, let's just focus on a data warehouse. Since I wrote that, I know the number of where clauses and conditions and authorizations that I had to apply on every single page to make sure that nobody saw anything they weren't supposed to. When we implemented RAS, and this, 33 state and federal partners with different roles, we we ran into the fact that at that time the documentation for real application security was a very simplistic example, and we immediately were beyond the example. And as ACE directors, we were very fortunate to be able to talk to the product managers and talk directly to the people that developed real application security. And then when it came to implementing it in Apex, which they told us, well, you just turn it on, we found it wasn't that easy. How do you turn it on? Where do you turn it on? What does internal user mean? What does external user mean? We worked with the Apex product managers to figure out the magic sauce there. What's neat on this slide, which may make your eyes blur, hang on because it gets better later on in the session. We have a full DML role. That's our queen user, Julie. She sees everything and she can select, insert, update, delete. Jim and I just had the read-only role, but if you look in that center square, different data sources. And so as we look at consolidated reports, I would see one slice of data. Jim would see a different slice of data. Same code, same page, same where clause. Actually, we didn't need a where clause anymore. Um, and we automatically see different slices and have different access, different privileges, select, insert, update, etc. Jim and I only had select based on our RAS roles, our RAS username in the system. Now, consolidated reports is a parent table. We had several, not just consolidated landings, but several detail tables. Because consolidated reports was protected, automatically the rows in landings and any other child tables are protected as well. And that's a huge advantage of RAS over VPD and other fine-grained access methods. So I think I beat this enough. Now you need to start seeing some real stuff. Because Jim and I had got so vocal about talking about real application security with the Oracle product teams, we were put in touch with Franco Ucci and Thomas Mina, and Thomas, I probably mangled your last name, who work at Oracle, who are doing fabulous things with real application security. And this slide shows a crime aggregate dashboard for various lots of crimes in Australia. And in this case, kind of a different analogy, but end users would have access to crimes by Australian state or by crime category. And again, a single Apex app, but depending on the users, the RAS user and their assigned roles and privileges in the RAS realm of things, um, same app, they would log in and see different things on this same dashboard on the same pages throughout the application. Then enter the AI world. Now we want to have these quick digital assistants. And what we found is RAS applies to RAG. Here's the RAS before RAG because RAS is set up in this application. Any RAG source, as long as we apply RAS policies to our table that contains the vectors, the same slice of data and only that slice of data can ever go to any AI agent or LLM. And that's the beauty of this. I don't have to build separate digital assistants for every combination of state and role and category in my application. I just set up RAS once, and that same slice of data carries forward no matter where I send it, the analytics app or the AI agent or the AI digital assistant. Really, really cool stuff. Should I keep talking, Jim? RAS capabilities.
Yeah, please.
So in any system, this is what we have to do today. This is the world we live in. We need to go for maximum security. And an architecture is something like this. There's a database firewall, there's an audit vault, maybe use key vault, maybe use transparent data encryption, maybe use data safe data masking. Maybe you can turn on SQL Firewall if you have that level database. Auditing should always be a part of your security architecture. What we're focusing on here is that red square in the middle. And it's a little square, but it's very, very mighty because this is data security, data-driven security at the source, at the database. And this can be label security, VPD, which remember, that's the previous version, as we like to say, VPD is Rust, RAS we trust. That's our little mantra, and then t-shirts are coming. So this is what we're focusing on is turning on RAS, that data security at the data source. So before you even consider it, know your data model, have a data model. I shouldn't even have to say that, but know your data model. Identify all the different consumers of your application's data and know what they do with the data. Then you can talk about how do you want to secure that data? Who should have access to which particular rows? Which particular columns are of interest that you may also have to either hide the data or limit privileges on that data? RAS can do all of that. That's what it's built for. And almost always, you're not just talking about the IT department, you need to get everybody involved here. If compliance is huge, you need to have your compliance department involved. For ACCSP, we had the major officers for every single state and federal partner involved, and this is what we need. And that's our
And,
world. That's what you need to do now.
and if
Next
you don't
slide.
have a data governance or compliance team, I feel for
Now's
you.
the time.
You will. Um, so let me just jump in for a second here, Karen, if I can,
Yes,
a little
yes,
bit
yes, yes.
about this. So give yourself a chance to rest your throat for a minute. So one thing to know about is that Oracle Label Security and Virtual Private Database, or VPD as it's called, that's been there since 8i. It's been there for a long time. I used to teach all the database administration courses, and we talked a lot about VPD. And Oracle Label Security was kind of alluded to. And usually, if you're one of the three-letter agencies or, red, blue, gray, you know about this. But starting in 12CR1, we not only got data redaction, which we're not going to talk about today, but real application security. That's been there. believe it or not, since 12CR1. So what, 12, yeah, I mean, what is that? Like 10 years? I mean, it's been there a long time. And back to one thing that Karen had mentioned, right? We're talking about limiting access to rows. But what about columns within rows, right? And if you think about a modern architecture, like you're going to use for generative AI, are you going to have a vector data type? Yeah, that's a column, isn't it? How are you going to restrict access to that? Well, I'll build a view and then yeah, that way lieth madness. Okay. That's what this is really aimed at. And it does, I mean, we struggled with this when we were trying to work on an even limited fashion with ACCSP stuff. Um, so Karen, you want to chat a little bit about this, the whole idea of where we're going from a
Sure,
RAS
sure.
perspective, I guess?
Yeah, so when you talk about turning on RAS or considering RAS, it seems scary and there's a stigma. Let's say people have ACE directors have told me, "Oh, you can't use RAS." We're going to simplify as best we can here. Um, there's users and roles, and a lot of us we're familiar with role-based security. Um, RAS supports declarative security policies end to end for an application at the row level, which is what our roles control, and column level, where what we call a privilege will control the column level security. On top of that, we can state isn't the right. We can determine is that select only, select, update, delete. That is all part of our roles and privileges that get rolled into RAS. And we found that we can manage, support much more complex security requirements than was initially documented in the RAS security. And we've proven that, um, Jim and I have proven that, and Franco and Thomas have done some great sessions
Right.
as well. Um,
Exactly.
there's the concept of an application session, which is different from the database session. Um, as I mentioned earlier, the master detail relations follow that gets supported, and that is it's so helpful. And what's really cool if you have an Apex application is they've natively integrated RAS so that it really is as simple as flipping a few switches in Apex to turn RAS on so that no matter what your authentication scheme is, you log in, and if RAS is enabled for that security scheme, then RAS takes over. Apex passes off to RAS, and data security is handled by RAS from then on. It's beautiful. So examples for RAS usage, your analytics and BI apps. Some of them are third party. You may not have control over that, but boy, is that real helpful to have
Yeah.
RAS, a single source, can control the slices of data that get to all your analytics and BI users. Basically, any downstream application. Any business end users who need direct SQL access, SQL CL or whatever IDE they may need, that's covered too. That same login, as long as they're RAS enabled, they get only the slice of data they're supposed to see. You no longer need to create a specialized view or even a PDB clone to restrict certain people. And the key thing with AI, this is that RAS before RAG, is these new kinds of workloads, the vector RAG and JSON duality views and select AI for those that are using select AI, set that RAS, set those policies once, and it's covered.
Let's talk a little bit about how a RAS session actually works, right? We're all familiar, you log into the database, you get a database session. The way, and Karen alluded to this just a couple seconds ago, the way this actually works is it's sort of like a shadow connection. So we connect to the application, but the application, in our case that we're going to demo, our Apex application, creates and attaches a RAS session, which is kind of still within the boundaries of the database session, but it is what actually applies the selection criteria, if you will, to the domain or the domain or realm, to be a bit more specific, of rows. That's automatically applied. The application goes and does its thing. And then when we're all done, like if in the case of an Apex application, we detach, log off, and the RAS session automatically gets detached from the database session. Now, one thing Karen did allude to, and this is the big thing that drove us when we were working on ACCSP, aka the fish data, was that we had users that were actually connecting with SQL Developer, the older reporting tools that outside of Apex, right, that they were using. And we had people who were connecting directly with SQL Plus. You probably have users like that, right? How are you going to limit them from accessing stuff outside of your application? What RAS actually does is it applies restrictions to realms, sets of rows, and columns as selection criteria or other things that the user never sees. So even if somebody said, for example, hey, I want to access a particular geographic region, but I'm only given permission to East. Oh, I looked at the code. I'm going to go ahead and add in, and where region equals West, guess what? Those two bounce against each other. What do you get? A null answer. So even if they could rewrite the SQL through SQL injection, which, don't forget, is still a key way of invading a database. If you get inside the firewall, RAS stops that code. So I'm going to jump over to this for a couple of minutes. We talked about data realms. When I say realm, you think sets of rows. When I say users and roles, well, we understand that, right? But we're also going to talk about the concept of RAS dynamic roles very briefly. Through these combinations of ACL, access control list. It's not like an ACL, like, read, write, execute. That's not what we're talking about here. Access control lists, which also refer to access control entries, we assign a set of privileges. And again, when we talk about realms, if we have all the rows in our database table, right, and there could be full tables, each of which has a specific identifier. And as Karen mentioned, we had 33, right, different realms that we had to secure based on the federal agency or state agency that you were set a part of. Again, think of it like this. You've got a whole bunch of rows in a particular table or set of tables. Some are in Boston, some are in New York, some are in Chicago, right? We're going to limit you based on, in this case, a geographic restriction. So a realm is nothing more than a set of rows, a group of rows specifying a set of business objects. So Karen, here's an interesting example. I know you know this one quite well. Why don't you go ahead and take us through the difference between the public data realm, being able to see only your own data, and then the fact that Nancy is also a manager.
The key things to notice on this particular set of data, this slice of data that Nancy has access to, is the public data realm. You notice the mobile phones, names, manager, mobile phones. That's covered. Everybody gets to see those columns. But when we start looking at salary,
Yeah,
Nancy, as manager, is only seeing salaries for her people. And that's by design. That's how the ACL was set up, the roles and the privileges. Now, the self data realm says that ID, I only see, even if I'm a manager, I only see my ID. Now, if Louis Pop were to log in as a not a manager, he would only see his ID and his salary and no one else's ID or salary.
exactly.
Really
Exactly.
cool way to do all these slices for all different levels of people all at once.
All right, here we go. We're going to start making your eyes bleed. You ready? So we were inspired by our friend Franco Ucci, who set up with Australian crime data to actually build an app that Karen's going to demo here in a little bit. But what we did is we took Chicago Police Department or CPD crime data. we started with a database of 8.4 million rows, and we figured we're not going to be able to use 8.4 million rows effectively in a demo. So what we did, and I'll just share this with you real briefly here, is we created simulated data for about 15 cases. So this is simulated data. Yes, crime happens in Chicago. Here's an example of a really brutal crime. It turns out to be a criminal sexual assault, and I'm not going to read through it. It's pretty horrible. But one of the things, again, this is example data. We did not scrape this from anybody's private data. Note that officers escorted the victim to an abused women's shelter in Clearing. And the lady is afraid that her partner may try retribution against her. And he might have a friend of a friend on the Chicago Police Department. It could happen. Notice that this document is listed as confidential. We built about 20 or so documents like this and attached them to a bunch of simulated crimes, all right? Because we couldn't do it for 8.4 million people, obviously, or instances. So here's our basic schema. We got a Chicago crime stable. Yes, 8.4 million rows in here. We took a small subset and created similar data. Now, each crime happens within a district, a geographic area inside Chicago. District. Yeah, that's going to be our realm differentiator. Also, we have LEOs, law enforcement officers, and administrative personnel as well, right? We have researchers. We have people that support the Chicago Police Department. We have internal affairs operators. We have social workers that need access to this data. However, the sensitive data, like that very sensitive arrest report, is stored as blobs inside the crime reports table. And if we vectorize it, the chunks of the documents, if you've done large language modeling, you know what you have to do is take your document and chunk it, right? And then place those chunks as well as the vectors, the embeddings, in some other table. Typically, this is the way we do it. Now, to take a secondary look at this, why are we concerned about this? Well, because the chief of police has gotten a new mandate from the new mayor saying, we want to restrict law enforcement officers from seeing only data in the district they're assigned, or in certain cases, one or two other districts. But we have other people that have to be able to see data across an area, which is a collection of districts. Oh, that's a realm, isn't it? Right? Mm-hmm. Districts 1, 3, 7, 5, 9. Oh, I can limit them using RAS. However, down here in the crime reports data, and by the way, crime ID is the primary key for Chicago crimes. The foreign key for that document is crime ID. Remember we said we could enforce restrictions on master detail relationships? Well, here's one. And by the way, here's another one. For each document, each one of those sensitive documents, we divvied it up into doc ID and chunk ID, which is just assigned as we do our large language modeling parsing of the document, right? Our AI is going to be looking at this and possibly at this as well. But other users may only need to see data from here. The technical term for this is security nightmare. This is not simple to implement. If you try doing this with views inside Apex, your heads would explode. And Karen knows this from experience because we worked together to try to figure out how to do that. And we finally just said, oh, let's RAS it. We'll make it work. So moving on. Here's the checklist. It's simple. It's so simple that we didn't put all the steps in here, okay? Your eyes would be bleeding from all the code. Fear not. The ACE Life program is going to provide a link. If you can't get it, you can reach out to one of us. We will get you the full list of all the code. I just wrote an article on this last night and finished it up. It's 29 pages, including all the code, okay? It is not trivial to set this up, but you only have to do it once for your application environment. So these 8 steps, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to focus on essentially steps 1, 5, 6, and 7. And actually, yes, that's what I'm going to focus on. So here we go. The first thing you have to understand is that you have to have a user account established as a administrator for RAS. Since we're using an ADB, I just chose our admin user account, the one that gets assigned normally. But if you have a security advisor, they're going to go, no. You're going to create a separate user. Maybe it's RAS ADM, maybe it's sec user, maybe it's secbot, sec unit. I don't know. If you've seen the show, sec unit here is in charge, right? For you science fiction fans. Anyway, this 2 grants gives admin or sec unit or whoever we choose permissions to handle all of our RAS tasks. Where are we going to put all of these restrictions? Well, Karen and I use this very effectively inside the database. You don't have to do that. If you've got Active Directory or you've got another SSO mechanism, you probably can do it right inside here. But we use the table. And so here's what we did. We have several different users. Here's what that data actually looks like. So L. Snelling, Larry Snelling, real person. He is chief of police in Chicago. He gets to see everything. And there's 3 different things embedded in here. What districts he can see. There's about 24 districts, excluding District 13, I presume for not bad luck. So he gets to see all of those districts. Notice there's also a second category, visibility. He is allowed to see all personally identifiable information, if anything is there. And he gets all 4 levels of sensitivity. Remember that one report we showed you, the simulator report, was classified as confidential. He sees everything. However, we also have a public relations assistant, Sandra Nguyen. She can only see these 6 districts. She can see PII. She can see all levels of sensitivity in documents. We also have a student who's helping out. She's only allowed to see these 5 regions, and note, her visibility is none. She cannot see any PII. She's not allowed, all right? And finally, we have a police department, Hopper, as we say here in Chicago, Walter Jackson. Walter Jackson, not a real person, was in District 10, but was reassigned to District 8. He can see PII, but he can't see anything beyond normal or sensitive data. Why? Because he's being investigated by internal affairs. And because of internal affairs, there's possibly some reports about him that are classified as secret. And therefore, he's not allowed to see that level of information. So that's how we basically built our enforcement mechanism. Now let's move on. I jumped over to step 5. Don't worry, the downloadable slides have all the steps, okay? What we're doing here is building a series of ACLs, access control lists. So the first one here is the global one. We're calling it CPD Dying Full Role, dying for dynamic. More on that coming in a minute. This person can do everything to the data. This is probably the owner of the data, including the view restricted PII privilege, which lets them see sensitive data. So this is the owner of the data, everything, right? But we got 2 other roles, a dynamic PII role and a dynamic data warehouse read-only role, DWRO role. They look very similar, except note, the one at the top can view restricted PII information and do select, but no DML. The one at the bottom has no privileges to see restricted data. So hopefully this is making sense from the ACL perspective. What about the data level? Now we're going to get into some realms. The first realm, SUPR, superior or supervisor ACL, its realm is 1 equals 1. Yeah, there's no constraints at all. So imagine if this were a where clause, it would be where 1 equals 1. It basically is a true condition. Look at the second one, however. This one is designed to allow people to see PII. But we have to build a realm restriction. And what we're doing is we're accessing that RAS secured users table we showed you the contents of, and the realm is simply a where clause, a selection criteria, which says, go build me one for all the districts for which the RAS user account name, which will be the same as their Apex login name, by the way, is found in that table, but only look at the values for district. So we said, chief of police, he'd have a list of about 24, but some of those other users might only have 2 districts or 6 districts or 5 districts. What happens behind the scenes when we access a particular table to which this restriction is applied, this selection criteria is added hidden. The user does not know that this has been added to their query against the particular table. One final one, this looks exactly the same. Yes, because for read-only access, we're going to apply only district level restrictions. So this would be for people that, as you're going to see, don't have the ability to see PII. And this one's going to be applied, this data security policy is applied to the Chicago crimes table, the master table at the top of all this. Now let's talk about column level restriction. So here, we're going to apply these to the crime reports table, which is where the documents themselves as blobs are stored. Notice we're querying that control table again, and we're looking up the sensitivity level. So remember that guy that only could see normal and sensitive, but not secret and confidential? Guess what that where clause is going to be? And, if you will, and sensitivity in sensitive and normal. That's what we're basically building here. But here's the cool thing. We're applying it to 2 columns in the crime reports table, that middle table. And we are not going to let anyone who hasn't been granted this privilege access to sensitivity or crime document columns. You know what's going to come up? Nothing. No values. Now, I know Kieran's going to tell you this later, but I'm going to jump in and say, by the way, if null is significant to that column, we have another way. We could just actually, with some coding, put in, instead of null, restricted or n/a if we wanted to, instead of returning null. We have that capability. Okay, if your head's not exploding yet, one more slide. Remember, down at the bottom is the crime vectors table. This is where the vectorized data lives. This is so cool. This green box here is the key thing. We are saying, don't look for a value of district inside crime vectors. Look at the foreign key relationship of the table above. So we're basically saying with this code in the green box, if it's restricted, if you're restricted from values or from realms in crime reports, you're also not going to be allowed to see any rows attached via the foreign key. This is extremely powerful, okay? What are we limiting access to? These 3 columns, including the document chunk and the embeddings. And this, my friends, is where the RAG data is. RAS applied to RAG. Finally, I'm going to let Karen talk about this, because now we're going to talk about enabling RAS for our Apex applications. Karen, you ready to talk about this one a little bit?
I'm ready. Am I turned on? Yes.
Yes, you're turned on.
2 things that have to happen in an Apex application. First is at the Apex instance level, the administrator needs to enable RAS for that Apex instance. And so this little image shows, an admin in the real under security, scroll over to the right, you'll see the real application security tab. And it's really as simple as yes or no. Allow real application security. Once that's done in your application, you can you need to log in, and we're looking at the authentication scheme. Now, in this particular case, we're using Oracle Apex accounts. You can use any Apex authentication scheme. It's really a black box that returns true or false. In this case, it's Apex accounts. And in that authentication scheme, you'll again scroll way over to the right. There's a tab that says Real Application Security. When you get down to that particular region, there's the RAS mode. Now, by default, it says select. There's nothing there at all. Um, we are setting it to internal users because we have Apex accounts. There's also an option of external users if you use a custom authentication scheme that may be best for you. But so these two places in the authentication scheme, down to real application security, select internal users, and we're done.
By the
We're
way,
done.
if you don't see the real
Almost.
application security tab here, remember
Exactly.
that first step that we talked about, enabling it at the workspace level? You missed that. How do I know that? Because I missed it when I was building my
Yes.
app. So
Yeah.
that's how we knew that.
Yeah. And
Okay.
most people miss that. It's probably it may have been in there
Yeah.
in your authentication schemes and you haven't had to use it. Now we had, do you want to talk to dynamic roles, Jim?
I'd love to. I'd love to.
This
Thanks,
is
Karen.
real
Uh,
important and we lost a lot of brain
right.
cells figuring this out.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, that whole thing with internal users versus external users, what did that take us? Like 3 months to figure out? I mean, it
Oh,
was not
that's a lot
trivial.
of talking, a lot of
Yeah,
sleuthing.
we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. But this is one of the things we had to figure out as well when we were figuring this out. So remember, we had those three different uh, uh, ACLs that we talked about. We had full, right, full access, DML access, and then we had PII access, and then finally we had data warehouse read-only access. One of the things we have in the slides that we didn't show you is creating dynamic roles. Okay, these are RAS dynamic roles, and here's the beauty of these. When we've logged in, remember, we do a login as a traditional database user, then RAS kicks in. And so as it kicks in, immediately afterwards, we run a post auth script. And this is inside our authentication scheme. So this procedure post auth simply says, go look at the visibility key type in RAS secured users and look up the username that you typed in when you logged in and find it in there. If you find it, see what level of visibility they have. And it's basically either visible or not. And so if we see either PII or full, we are going to assign you the appropriate dynamic role. Each of those dynamic roles, if you remember several slides back, the ACLs enforce the ACLs. And so we're turning on the appropriate realms and column level privileges based on these dynamic roles. And notice that if we find nothing for some reason, we didn't add you to that table, you're going to see nothing. The application will still load and stuff will come up, but you will literally see nothing of the sensitive data. And so this is the secret that a lot of people don't know about. And we had to pull together to make this all work. Karen, I'm going to
Yeah.
grant you share access.
All
It's
righty.
time for the demo. Indulge yourself.
All right.
As Captain Kirk said to Mr. Sulu in one of the movies. Yes.
Of course.
Have
So
fun.
we were very inspired by Franco's Australian crimes, but we had to do um we had to
Great
do
crimes? Wait a minute. Not his crimes, his application.
oh
We want
yeah,
to make
yeah,
that
you're
plain.
right. The
Yeah.
crime data. I'm sorry. Franco is a very honorable man. Um,
Yes.
so El Snelling, our chief. This is a very, very simple. Well, look at the verification and
Oh, yes.
notice this just page just confirms they've got the PII role, they've got chief sees everything, and so they've got great sensitivity on a bunch, 20 all districts. I'm not going to run through all 22. But when we look at reports, notice Lara's got all these documents. that are visible and on the all sensitivities here. And these are just various crimes in the area that and he has access to at this point. Um, Taking it a little bit further, when we go to a chatbot, this is where we're accessing our vector table, and we can see were there any homicides. Well, it'd probably take my but it's going to say no, but it says, hey, I've got sexual assault, deceptive. I've got all these other crime types, and I can continue here with um,
Remember, folks, we're talking to a, a chatbot, and we're using Maverick, right, Karen? I think.
Maverick, and we're
Right.
using so so Mr. Snelling here is able to see some pretty heinous stuff. Um, Crimes involving animals.
That should be
Just
interesting.
no. Various crimes,
However,
animals.
one person was dressed as an inflatable
Inflatable
chicken.
chicken. Anything. Let's try this.
Yes.
I'm surprised this one didn't come up. There we go. And this is my
There we
favorite.
go. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
But you can see this is generative AI. These are not staged questions, but you can
Yes.
see that the
Exactly.
hand at the inflatable chicken. What's important for the RAS thing is we can access it. It appears to me that everything Mr. Snelling should have access to is, in these documents is getting sent up there. That chatbot is seeing sensitive data. Now, if I
Right.
log out and sign in as SNGY, this is, I don't have her. Let's do this.
It's a better
This
one.
is our student. This is our student. This is a better one.
Yes. Right. Which remember, the student has no PII access at all. And you can see
Right.
that in the verification. She's granted the appropriate dynamic role. Exactly.
Only 5 districts, not 22, and student area 1 only. So there's fewer crimes that she can actually
Mhm.
see here. Now, some heinous stuff, but she's not getting all the details. Um, let's try this.
The chatbot still works, but
It's not going to get all the details.
right.
Matter of fact, she got none.
Yeah.
So, and also notice here, I don't know if this may not, well, that's close enough.
Yeah.
No, sorry. So very, very limited, but I did not change any code here. And
Nope.
also
Right.
notice that because she has no access to those documents, she has no access to those documents. We just took that region out.
Wow.
She doesn't even know she doesn't have
Oh,
access to that. And what I did is add a condition on the region, because if I didn't add the condition on the region, it would show and it would say no data. And then I'm like, why don't I have any data? I just said exist. Do any rows exist in this table for this user? And if not, then don't show the region. So very cool way um, to restrict things.
we have
Let's
one more user. Yeah.
get
One
one
more
more user
user.
with my
And
little
this is an
chat.
interesting one. Yeah. Mr. Jackson. Yeah. We have about 5 minutes left. So we
So have
told you
your
we're going to
questions
cram this stuff in
ready.
here.
Yeah, we're doing it. I think I
Yes, we got this rocking. Check it out, guys. This will be an interesting one. So remember,
the
Mr. Jackson can only see districts 8 and 10 and can't see anything about secret or confidential data. And since he's under investigation,
he's kind of
right,
restricted. So he's got
he's
a
extremely restricted. He's got a few things.
few
But
things.
when you hit the chat bot, that takes a little
Yeah.
bit of time to load. On one
Um,
vector timeline. He doesn't have a
best
lot here.
question. Uh,
Ask about, am I under investigation? Try that. Because remember, he is under investigation. And there are documents out there referencing him, but he can't see them. How do you like that? Oh, even better. Oh, Karen is so good at this. How do you love
nobody,
that?
nobody's under
Nobody.
invest.
Yeah. Watch your back, Mr. Jackson. Yeah.
Now he'll
And
get
again,
something here, but not what he's looking
maybe.
for. Could yeah, none at
No,
all.
he don't.
Um,
Right. Because those would be classified as confidential or secret.
he's kind of
So,
restricted, very
exactly.
mundane crimes according to Chicago span of
Exactly.
crimes.
Yes.
So one setting, we set up our security in RAS, and now we build our application, and we don't have to worry in the application about sending this slice here and this slice here and this slice here. All of that is
Exactly.
controlled. It's really, really, really powerful. There
Ivy,
are
do you have
many
a
more
couple more
questions. We had a
slides?
lot of fun with this chatbot,
Yeah.
but
Yes. Oh, yeah. We had some very interesting things. But I have a couple more slides and I
perfect.
will wrap
I'm
up. Thank you,
back to you,
Karen.
Jim.
Thank you. Back to you, Jim. We're almost done. Hang in there, folks. The last few things we wanted to share, we did that demo. Uh, you've seen all of these things. I'm not going to waste time reading to all these key points. We already talked about this, the declarative policies. It works within your database. There are some excellent technical resources. Uh, there's a lot to read there. Our friend Thomas Minning and Franco Ucci have done some amazing stuff. By the way, I just want to point out, if you're thinking about using this with Active Directory, I just found this one yesterday. Thomas had mentioned he had written this. Check this one out because it shows how to do RAS within Active Directory. He's done some really great articles, really fleshing out the details underneath this. And finally, we wanted to give a shout out to Franco and Thomas because we've been meeting with them at admittedly some ungodly hours because Franco's over in Australia. I think we had a 6 a.m. meeting last week or something like that.
Yeah.
But they have been the torchbearers, if you will, for really using RAS. And notice that Thomas says he is leading the real application security topic in his team in EMEA and in the universe. So we are so glad that these two gentlemen worked with us and encouraged us to and gave us some great examples for trying this out. And I think with that, we're done.
Awesome,
Cool.
just in
And
time.
yes, we try. Hopefully, you have enough time to wrap up.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation today, and thank you for everyone who joined us. Oh, let me turn on my camera. Um, and thank you for sharing such valuable insights and practical guidance. I love the demo. And for all of you who attended today, we hope you found the session useful. And we'll be in touch in the following days. We'll send you the video replay, the slides, because Jim has already shared that with us. And we're looking forward to seeing you to some of our other ACE live sessions in the upcoming year. Thanks, everyone.